going to spend the next hour, maybe a bit less, just covering a few topics related to the integration functionality that we have in the system and how we've adapted it for version 3 to make it hopefully a bit more, let's say, uniform throughout the different integration platforms that we can bring into our system. And specifically talking about, in that case, OPC, Modbus, and a new protocol that we now support, IEC 61850. A second topic I want to touch briefly on is the adaptations that we've made for the EDE import file, which is the engineering data exchange file that we sometimes use for importing or integrating third-party backnet systems. We've made some changes in that to adapt to other, let's say, third-party systems that don't conform directly to the standard backnet libraries that we have. We're also going to look at the discovery snap-in, the backnet discovery snap-in, and you'll become familiar with some of the changes we made to that to make it a bit more easier to use, a bit more intuitive to use. And a couple of other things that we think will help for some subsystems where polling is an issue. We're getting a lot of data in the value log and in the HDB, and we want to control how much and how frequently that data comes into our systems. And we can adapt on a data point instance a couple of properties to help us in that area. So those are the main topics I want to talk about this afternoon. First one, as I mentioned, is how the import files, some of you who are maybe not familiar, we have in our system some standard libraries that are always delivered with the distribution. That includes OPC, it includes Modbus, and as an option it will later include this IEC 61850. But for those of you who have integrated Modbus or OPC, you may remember that there was always some uncertainty about the CSV import file and how to configure it. There were some, with OPC for instance, there were some properties that weren't available in the Modbus CSV. The delimiter that separated the different properties when we did the import was interpreted differently depending on which protocol you were importing. In other words, the importers were developed by different developers and they were interpreting the data differently. So for instance, if you created a Modbus import file with a semicolon as the delimiter between the properties, the importer would refuse to import it. You would get an error because the delimiter it was expecting was actually a comma. So there were these minor differences in the importers because different developers had maybe a different concept, or it just wasn't coordinated as well as one might expect. And so we've taken that into consideration, and in version 3 now, we've created a uniform format for all the CSV files, as much as we could, depending on the specifics of the subsystem. But as much as possible, the CSV files now are more uniform in their formatting, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of the engineering when we're creating those CSV files. And this is a list. I won't go through each one individually, but you can see overall that all the the CSV files for the 3 standard protocols, OPC, Modbus, and IEC 61850, you'll see that later in the week, contain these common properties now. So property fields. So if you create a CSV file in Excel or a text editor, all these properties can or cannot be used, but they will all be available to you to use in your configuration. We have for each of these libraries, we have some standard templates that have been provided from headquarters, which will allow you to maybe be a bit more efficient when you're creating these files. So there's an OPC import file in a generic form, there's a Modbus, and there is an IEC 61850. So we've taken a little bit of the guesswork out. That's the point. And when you open up one of these files, we can maybe quickly take a look at one and go to our project. I'm just coming over now to the server. If we go to the main project, profiles, you'll see there are 3 folders now.
Greg?
Yes. Oh, you're not seeing. Let me grab the Explorer.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
You just never know sometimes. You'll see these 3 folders now where we have these various templates. Now, in 2.1, we already had some templates, but now you can see the versioning, version 3, version 3, version 3. In OPC, we have just 1 configuration file, and IEC has also got some configuration. We open that up, you'll see all the various columns. I won't go into detail into each one, but all of them have been extended so that they have a uniformity in the configuration. You can use these to configure the import data as required. But of course, we're talking about version 3. And the importers now have been aligned for version 3. This means if you try to import a version 2.1 CSV file, you may have some issues. The importer may not parse it correctly. You may get some errors during the import. And the issue is then, how are we going to adapt a 2.1 import file for version 3? Good question. We have a couple of conversion tools available to us that will take the version 2.1 CSV file and format it correctly for the new importers in version 3. So it's a simple exe, runs in a command line. You open the exe, you enter the data file that you want to convert, you go ahead and convert it, and then you have the new format. So let me quickly demonstrate what this is all about. And it should take just a few seconds. So let's go into our system. Actually, we don't even need the system. Open up Explorer. And I have a sample CSV file from version 2.1 in a folder that looks like this. What the actual content is irrelevant at this point, just that it is a 2.1 file with some data points. And I'm going to convert it now to version 3 format. So in the bin file of the GMS main project, bin, and if we do, let's see, a search, star conv star .exe maybe, just to kind of exe. You can see once we've carried out that search that we have 2 actual conversion tools here. One is for Modbus and one is for OPC. This particular sample file is a Modbus file. So I'm going to just double click to run this in the command prompt. I'm going to navigate to my conversion folder. We'll take this across into the command line. And then the name of the file itself, ncx_dev1.csv. We'll hit the enter button. And you can see above in the Explorer, we now have this converted file. So we'll add the extension _converted. I can leave the, maybe we can open it with Excel and see if we have the conversion here. Quickly do data, text to columns, delimited. We've got comma maybe, comma, next, finish. And there you can see relatively easily, I hope, especially these columns are new to this format of the data file. Normally they wouldn't have been there in the version 2.1. So this is the conversion tool. Another thing I wanted to make you aware of is this list separator, which is new. The importer now will take any list separator that you want to use here, which is separating the properties of the various elements in this file. And the list separator now will not be using the importer's view of the delimiters that we use, which was normally looking at the regional settings of the operating system. Okay, so that's the conversion aspect of converting these CSV files.